I stand by my true God, cause I am the ruler of my state of Buddha, like Buddha, Buddha, Buddha. I stand by my true God.
Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome. This video is being brought to you by the 5 individuals who sent a donation. I said that in my last live. If I am incentivized to do a video sharing a past astral projection experience, I will do this video, and I'm a man of my word, so thank you to the 5 individuals who made that donation. I really appreciate it. Alright, now, first of all, let me say that this is probably my first video I've done this year about astral projections specifically. And I want to share this one because it has a moral to it. It's kind of bittersweet as well. Let me briefly explain to those who are new the gist of how and why you will often hear people such as myself say that we are multidimensional, and why we have what we call multiple bodies that is not seen by the visible eye. Everything essentially has a multidimensional layer, meaning their components stacked or connected to every single particle, right? So when a human body is formed, the same thing applies. So essentially what this means is that not only do we have a dense physical body, but we have a copy of the dense physical body in astral form, in the dream state form, in the mental form, and so on and so forth. I like to use the analogy of a Russian doll. You know how a Russian doll has a smaller, different copy of itself within the whole of itself? That's pretty much what I am driving home at this point. Now imagine each layer of that Russian doll having an appropriate bandwidth of energy, realities, and laws and frequencies that correspond with each layer. The astral body is a subtle, less dense version of this body. It's also smaller than this body, and so does the dream body, and so on and so forth. So what happens is when we go to sleep, most of us by default shift our consciousness by way of the dream body or the mental body. Some of us also shift our consciousness by way of the astral body. If we were using 100% of our brain 100% of the time, we would know how to consciously shift into either body at will. Here's where the star family, I often say or reference them as star family. These are beings who are related to us, who have mastered all this. They can do all this stuff at will. We are still just starting to come to a collective knowledge and understanding of these things. So as more people wake up and the veil thins, more of us are tapping into the astral layer or frequency or vibration of the astral realm. Again, many do it by default but don't retain the memory or don't remember doing it. But I see many of you out there walking around unconscious that you are in your astral body, and many of you are in your astral forms and on the astral realm thinking you're dreaming in your dream body. And these are usually those what you perceive as a dream that are very physical and dream-like, and sometimes comes across as very linear, similar to how we experience this so-called reality. Each body, again, is vibrating on a different frequency that correspond with a different dimension. So here's what I mean, and when we say we are multidimensional, that's exactly what it is. So they are layers to this body, and then when you look at your higher selves, you have layers to that level of awareness, and so on and so forth. So here is the gist and foundation of what an astral body and how these multidimensional layers and aspects operate, and how and why we unconsciously and consciously can tap into them. Now, I must set as a preface my state of mind when I had this particular experience that I'm going to share with you, because the state of mind always play a major factor in terms of what realm, what dimension, and what level we find ourselves being attracted to, magnetized to, meaning we are pulled there against our own willfulness, or the realms that we are attracted to, or the realms we choose to go to. When I had this particular experience, I had put in about 5 years of really working on myself, working through depression and loving myself unconditionally and not caring about what people think and so on and so forth. But at the same time, I was working very, very hard. I have a very strong work ethic, and when I throw myself into work, especially then, I would do it to the point where I would barely eat, or I wasn't eating that well. I was overexerting myself, and being an empath and an intuitive seer, being that out of balance and having an inherent ability to shift into these different bodies so easily and without little thought, that was not the best combination. So at this particular time, I was just coming out of depression, and I was under tremendous stress, wasn't eating the best, wasn't getting proper rest, and so on and so forth. So when this happens, I would often find myself waking up in my astral body in the lower dimensions, or what is commonly referenced as the lower fourth dimension. This particular time, I had awakened in the lower fourth dimension, but instead of being in these doorways, I talk about these astral doorways when we go there, and each doorway is basically a gateway or portal into a different realm, reality, or collective state of consciousness. So before I even went in a doorway, I found myself magnetized at many entry points. So it was literally like me waking up and finding myself in this reality, seeing these doorways. And before I can assess what is going on, I see this being come through one of the doorways to my right. This being came through the doorway. His eyes was already locked on me. Now, the best way I can describe this being, imagine a very huge muscular man, a lion, and a viper hybrid combined with wings. I did this drawing to give you an idea of what he looked like. This being was crawling, coming towards me. Now, I know that for most people, this would be very frightening, right? But for me, I was instantly amused by him. Now, on the astral realm, communication, for the most part, is telepathic. These beings that I'm referencing, these are very, very ancient, really ancient beings. And when you think of an ancient being that has seen it all and has interfaced with it all, their wisdom and knowledge will be off the charts. So these beings would know how to communicate in a myriad of ways because they've been around for a very long time. These particular beings are just trapped on the lower fourth dimension of the astral realm, right? So this being comes over, and immediately I spoke hello. I was being very kind and gracious to him, and he was acknowledging me. And the next thing I know, we're having this dialogue. So I'm asking him about him, where he comes from, who he is. Next thing I know, he's engaging. He's being kind of standoffish and not really answering the questions that I'm asking him outright. Next thing I know, he's here communicating with me, and then he's here on my left side. And he sits up, and he's huge compared to me. Still not afraid of him, not intimidated by him. I continue conversating and chatting with him. The next thing I know, it's as if I'm looking at myself outside of my body, but I'm seeing what he's doing from this perspective at the same time. You know how a snake opens its mouth to swallow a prey 30 or 40, 50 times its size? Well, this is what I'm seeing this being do. Now, as I'm watching this, I can't move. I can't do anything. All I can do is watch what's happening. So literally, his mouth, jaw becomes so unhinged and really, really wide, and I see his head like hovering over mine with his mouth wide open. I mean, he was expanding it as wide as my entire astral body, and he was coming down, and I remember seeing inside of his body, inside of his mouth. I don't remember seeing any teeth, but I saw like this dark plasmic, dark fleshy type texture with dark patches of darkness inside of it. And I'm sitting there as he's opening his mouth to come down over my head, and I'm sitting there, nothing I can do. All I could do is watch. It was like he had me paralyzed. And as he was slowly coming down, and I felt the vibration of his mouth trembling as he was coming down over my body, and just when he could have just taken me in, he literally snapped back and said, I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't do it. He was shaking and saying, I can't do it. And at that moment, I snapped back from observing what he's doing and watching what he's doing from a first person perspective. I shift to a first person perspective. And as he was sitting there, saying, I can't do it, I can't do it, I can't do it, I can't do it. So I'm still calm. And I telepathically ask him, why? Why can't you do it? I don't know what, I just asked him. This is what he said to me. He said, you're the first person I've ever come across who didn't treat me like a monster. Now let that sit in. This being who has interfaced and probably consumed energy, astral energy, plasmic energy from many souls, told me he couldn't do it because for the first time, someone like me did not treat him like a monster. I didn't run from him. I didn't try to attack him. I treated him with kindness and respect. And not only did he not eat my astral body, but he became a protector of me when I would find myself on those realms. He watched over me. Now, I found this part out later. Keep in mind, when I had this experience, I did not know as much as I know now. Because just like anything else, the more you experience it, the more you learn. So, I had befriended another entity very similar to him, and the same thing, this being shielded, and they would protect me when I would go to those or find myself on those lower realms. They would shield and protect me. I'm going to get back to these particular beings, and I'm going to explain to you guys how and why this transferred over into my physical life. As far back as I can remember, every time I would see someone with a serious deformity or someone who has has an appearance that I know would bring them a lot of attacks, ridicule, and shame, I would instantly feel sympathetic to them, and I would want to be their friend. This is a trait that I simply, it's just who I am. It's a part of who I am. Or I would want to know their story. What is it like? How are they coping? So this was not a trait that just kicked in when I found myself on a lower astral realm. It is an inherent part of myself. And because of this, I always find myself like wanting to befriend the outcasts and the misfits and the people who don't look quote unquote normal or like anyone else, because I know the struggle. I had been treated as an outcast and misfit in a different kind of way. But even if I were not, I would still have this soft spot for beings who look different and who are different and who receives that kind of treatment. Because again, you don't have to be a monster literally to be treated like one. This is why we have a lot of criminals here on this planet. These are people who were void of love and were treated like monsters, mistreated. Now I'm going to tie that to this particular being. Many of our sociopaths, serial killers, psychotic killers, people who we deem as monsters in based on their behavior, that we mistreat and judge, many of them are souls of these very beings who show to have redemptive qualities. In that moment when that being could not do that with me, he was recognized as someone who has redempting qualities. And so therefore redemption was given to this being. And here's where the gods or God of Source opens up a doorway for these beings to get a human body or get a body and begin going through the process of perfecting their souls. So on one hand, when people are mistreating another because of how they look, it's a negative, but there's a silver lining behind that, because that's helping to evolve that soul. But it can also assist in keeping that soul where they are. Because if you continue to treat someone as a monster when they're not, but ignoring those who don't look like a monster, but underneath all the illusion and smoke and mirrors they are, you see where I'm going with this. So in that moment, I learned firsthand how and why redemption and forgiveness is given to even those that we perceive to be the most monstrous amongst us, whether they look like a monster based on how we were programmed and taught, or based on whether they behave and act like a monster in the way that we have been programmed to see them as. Now, I must admit that as the veil started thinning and the cleanup on this planet had begun, and the star family is coming in by way of the dream state, astral state, on this plane, that you just don't see them. They're behind the scenes, make no mistake about it. They began coming in and rounding these guys up for different reasons. I remember there was another being that I had befriended on the lower astral realm, and I remember that if they were three brothers, and they had this special sack, and they grabbed him and they were sacking him up, and one of them had like a highly advanced like cell phone type device. He was calling in the capture, and I remember telling him, "What are y'all doing to my friend?" At that point, that was a friend, and I felt like I was defending my friend. Now I'm older, I understand, what that was really all about. These beings are being moved around to be put in their rightful place, or they're being redeemed, or they because they have redeeming qualities, they are allowed to evolve and perfect and rise out of the prison state that they're in. So I'm going to end on this. Next time you judge someone by appearance, remember, you may be aiding in the creation of a monster that's really not necessary. We really, really, really have to work through judging a book by its cover, because I'm seeing even right now, people are trusting those who have ill intentions, who look the part, act the part, talk the right game, but there's some vicious monsters behind them, and you're mistreating and ignoring and disrespecting the gems who have powerful redemptive personalities and qualities, and basically treating them like monsters. Go skin deep, guys. That's why I had this song, the instrumental of my song Skin Deep, playing in the background. This is a part of the lesson. We must learn to discern, and we must learn to look skin deep, because at the end of the day, that's all that truly matters. All right, that's it for this one. Until the next time, if you would like to see more content like this, by all means, please support this channel by way of donation. Whatever you can give, that will incentivize me to put in the work and produce more of them. All right, until the next time, you are loved beyond measure. Continue to question, learn, and grow. And I hadn't said this in I don't know how long. In spite of everything that's going on in this chaotic time, happy travels, y'all.